It's now time to do the groom spawning from the helmet. This is going to look something akin to this, where it's going to go forward. It's going to go back like so. It's going to be more like maybe more like this. Then it's going to go like here. And we're going to be achieving this by using guides. And the guides will be placed from the surface. And it will go up something like this, which is going to create the shape of the groom. Before we do anything, we are going to make sure that we are in the xgen workspace. So just click workspace and xgen, and then we have xgen right here. Then we are going to be preparing where the groom spawns from. So we could set this piece and we can create a map, but it's much easier if we have a piece of geometry. Remember when we started sculpting this guy, we made a duplicate of a model called unsmooth group. If we now were to hide the sculpted model and unhide the smooth version, then we can get a piece of this model and extract that and make sure that we have a really nice and clean piece we can use to spawn the groom from. So I'm going to be duplicating this piece, Control D, duplicate. You can see down here, this is now a new piece. Then we hit Shift P to get it out of the group. So now we have a duplicate of this piece right here. Then we're going to be hiding this piece. So now we have a model which is low poly and easy to use. Hit the 1 key so that we make sure that we are in regular polygon mode. And then we're going to be selecting this face and going all the way on the other side and shift double clicking and selecting that face. Then we'll grow the selection once, hit the G key to grow it once more. And now we have a nice selection to work from. Then we'll shift and drag on top of everything to invert the selection. Hit the delete key, and now you can see that we have a nice piece the groom can spawn from. We only have some additional polys here, which we don't need. So we can hit this polygon, shift double click to select the loop, delete. And we do the same on the other side as well. Can be a bit tricky sometimes to get in there, but let's just do the same thing. Shift, double click, and go in. So you can now see that we also have some additional polygons. This is not strictly speaking a problem, but it's just nice to clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to be going in and selecting this loop and this loop, shift right mouse button and delete. And then I'm going to do the same thing with these guys as well. Just make sure we select only the actual range going down, shift right mouse button, delete. And I'm not going to be deleting this edge because then this happens. Instead, I'm going to be switching to vertices. Just right mouse button, vertex. And then we're going to be going to merge vertices by shift right mouse button, merge vertices, and target weld tool. Then we can click on target weld on this vert and drag it onto here. And we can do the same for the other guy as well. And just weld these two together. Now, there are a million ways of doing this. Feel free to do it in your preferred way. The only thing we're after is this exact thing. We just want a low poly base where we can grow the groom from. Shift Alt D to delete history. And we're just going to be calling this headpiece groom and remove the geo. And then we're going to be getting back the sculpted version. So in this case, it's not a huge problem that you can see both. Like even in renders, it's probably not going to be a problem that you can see both of them because we are going to be looking at it from this angle. And since it goes into the actual helmet, you can never see it. But what you might want to do, and depending on your circumstance, is you might want to just push it down so that you can't actually see where it spawns from. This gives you a bit more control. But in our case, we're just going to leave it right here. But the problem could just be that you could potentially see where the groom spawns from, which could give you some artifacts. But in our case, we are just going to be leaving it right here. And then we are going to make a layer from the smooth sculpting, and just so we can make sure that we can hide this at any one time. Select the group, make a new layer, the one to the right, which is going to attach the selected objects to it. So now we can turn it on and off. We can call this sculpted helmet. There. So now it's very easy to get this back on and off. With this piece, we will now go to the xgen tab. Make sure to save our scene. Xgen is a bit finicky, so make sure to save your scene often. Now we go to the action tab and we hit create new description. And then we're going to be naming the description helmet groom. And the collection will be called Intro to Maya. Essentially, what part of the groom is this and what's the overall project? This could be called like hair stubble or, you know, carpet groom, whatever it might be for your piece. And then we're going to be using splines, like we said before, so we can control it nicely, randomly across the surface. And we're going to be setting this to placing and shaping guides. This means that we have to place guides for anything to happen. Hit create. And there we go. Now we have to actually create some guides. The way we do this is with the add guides tool, which you can find here. So make sure you are under the xgen menu. You can also find this under the actual xgen shelf as well. You can find it right here. These two are the same. And then we can click it, and then we can create some guides. We're going to be creating a few guides, and we're going to be shaping the guides nicely. So just click it where you want to go. And then we need to scale this guy up quite a lot. And then I'll do one at the end as well. Right there. And we have to scale this guy up as well. So it's the same when you do any kind of modeling. You work from general to specific. Add another guide. And we are only doing the left side, the screen left side. And then we'll mirror it over using the mirror tool. Scale it up like so. So now what you can start to see, if you were to click on the xgen preview, now you can actually start to see some groom happening. We need more guides. So let's add one more in the middle, like so. And you can see I'm trying to be very deliberate where I'm placing it. I'm trying to place it very close to the edge. We'll click that. And then we can just scale it up a little bit. And you have to update the actual xgen preview every single time you do any changes. It will not, if you scale it up and down, it will not automatically do this. Make sure to save. And then we add another guide as well. Just going to scale this up as well. Essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a nice curve going between these so that it actually has a nice curve instead of it being very angular and looking like this. So that's my main goal right now. And I'm also trying to think about the design. I want the groom to be longer up here because that looks a bit more hero. And then I want it to go down a little bit just so there is a bit more design to the actual helmet. So just preview the groom. And then we need to set the density all the way up. This is going to be set to, let's try 1,000 as a starting point. Now it's set to 100. Let's set this to 1,000. And this happens a lot. And this is really annoying. When this happens, you just have to refresh maybe a few times. Sometimes it just happens. And the reason this looks crazy thick now is because we have to change the thickness of it as well. We're going to set the width to, instead of 1, we can set this to 0.5. Just update it. It will come around. Don't worry about it. It just happens. It's just xgen being xgen. Then we're going to be setting the tapering. This is how much does it actually taper. So you can see this now tapers a crazy amount. So we're going to set this to something like 0.8. And then we're going to set a taper start, meaning where does it start to taper from? And we're going to set this a bit lower to something like 0.4. Like we said in the xgen chapter, for human hair, you often want to set this to 0.8 and 0.8. But in our case, we're going to be setting this a lot lower. Just because now it's going to start tapering from around this point or so. But feel free to change the density or the width to whatever you prefer as well. But now you can see some issues. Now you can see that what I was trying to avoid is actually happening. You can see this looks very angular. And we want to avoid the angularity. And the only way of doing this is by adding more grooms. We have to go in and we just have to add more grooms to it so that it looks something like this. So that these curves, so these straight lines will be more curved. That's really the only way of doing it. So take away my crappy paint over, and then we're going to be disabling the groom as well. And then we need to add more guides. But before we do that, we are going to start shaping the guides just a little bit. So right now you can see that this is perfectly straight. I want this to be curved. I want this to go something more like this. So there are a few ways we can do this. We can either right mouse button, guide control points. And now we can go in and we can actually change the vertex on these guys. So we can start to move this forward. And this is going to work perfectly fine. And this is a totally legit way of doing it, where we're now just shaping it. You have a lot of control this way, meaning that you can really go in and you can move this around by a few degrees, a few angles, whatever it might be. But it's also really annoying because it's not a very organic way of doing it. It's a very mechanical way. But now we can easily change the length of it and all that. So in order to just change the curve, this is totally fine. But I'll show you a different way as well, which is what we did in the xgen chapter. And that is using the Sculpt Guides tool. Now, like we did in the xgen chapter, we're going to be moving this guy all the way over because that's going to convert it to polygons, which is really bad. So you do that just by middle mouse button dragging it around. Make sure to save. And then we're going to be using the Sculpt Guides tool. And now you can see that we can actually start to sculpt that around as well with an actual sculpting brush. Hit the Shift key to scale up the brush or not, or up and down. And then we can start to shape this guy. I'm just going to move it a bit out like so, just so it has a bit more variation, has a bit more gravity to it. And now the $1 million question is, how do you actually control one of the other ones? Well, if nothing is selected right now, it's going to work on all of them. But you might be in a case where you have this selected. Now, this also selects all of them, but if you have only one selected, you can only select one of them, which is fantastic and annoying, because now you can only select this one. If you want to select some of the other ones, we have to actually manually select them here, or we can select the entire collection like so. It's really handy to be able to select all of them, but it's really annoying because now you can see I want to move this guy, but I'm almost touching, like they're so close, so it's really hard to actually select the right one. So I recommend that you go in and you actually select each one by hand occasionally. You can also do that in the viewport as well. Just select one of them here. And then we can just go in and we can just shape it up just a little bit. You want it to feel nice and organic. Select the hair, or the spline. Then we select the groom tool, or the sculpt tool. I just call it the groom tool because that's where I do my grooming, but it's not called the groom tool. It's called the Sculpt Guides tool. And let's do the same for the last one as well. Sculpt Guides tool is phenomenal. And you can see I'm not using the setting we talked about earlier, which is lock length. Like I'm not disabling this. I could, but I really prefer to have it on and then make it longer or shorter with the scale tool. I have a lot more control that way. Okay, and now we're going to be seeing what's going on now. And there we go. Now you can see the entire groom leans to one side. So with that said, let's add more guides to it. Disable the groom, enable here, and disable with this. And we definitely need more than 5. We're going to be doubling this amount. So we're going to be putting 1 in the middle. We can do that with the Add or Move Guides tool. So just click. So now we just need to scale this up just a little bit so it has a bit more of a curve. Because if we were to now do, an actual measure, if we were to actually measure it, the previous position would be around here. So it would be almost a straight line. So we can add another one. We can add another one here. We can add another one here. One thing which is really annoying when you're working with xgen, and you might be wondering now, is doesn't the instructor ever have issues with the software? I used to always ask this question whenever I was following tutorials. It just seems like the software would never crash, there would be no errors whatsoever. And the answer is, oh, absolutely we do. xgen has a lot of problems, and when I've been prepping for these chapters, there have been all sorts of completely random issues. Sometimes this entire menu disappears. Sometimes, we have these issues where, like I said before, like areas would just appear and disappear. So if you do have issues with xgen, it's most likely not you. It's most likely actually just xgen. It is just a bit frustrating to work with, but a lot of the issues can be remedied simply by having your scenes be really clean and definitely setting the project. But sometimes you just have to basically throw your computer into a river and just buy a new one. It's like the most frustrating thing in the world, but particularly restarting Maya is a really good help, and also just resetting the project as well. So in this case, we rant over. So in this case, we now have, you can see that we have a little bit of actual, still a little bit of straight lines going on, but this is not a problem at all right now because we're going to be breaking this up so much with modifiers. So even if you can see some of the straightening, this is not a problem. What we are going to be doing, we are going to be selecting all the guides, and then we are going to be mirroring them over. So select all of them. I really prefer to do this in the outliner and not in the viewport because they might be hidden somewhere. In this case, it's very straightforward. You could literally just select them in the viewport. You can just drag and drag and drag. You can see that they're selected, but maybe one of them isn't. And then you were to accidentally mirror it over and work on it for a few hours, and you're like, ah, crap. So select all of them, select one, shift click the other, and then we're going to be clicking on the mirror across the x-axis. And there you go. Now you can see that these are now being mirrored over. Just hide the groom for a second and we can just inspect what's going on. And now we can just make sure they aren't intersecting with each other. It's really easy that one of them would be that we actually crossed the center line, but in this case we didn't. Re-enable the groom. And now you can see a really annoying issue. As before, you can see that the groom was all leaning to one side, but now you're seeing a really annoying issue, which is that it keeps going in like so. And this is because it is interpolating it in a way which is mathematically correct, but is technically wrong for our expected purpose. xgen isn't doing anything wrong. It's just being very pragmatic about it. It's just being a computer. So there are some ways of fixing this. One of them is that we can add more guides to it. Let me show you what happens, why this actually happens. When we were to add another guide now, let's put it right in the center. You can see what happens. It puts it right there. If we were to add another one, it will just keep adding it in. And this is because it interpolates between them. Now, it doesn't really know that there is a left and a right side. It will just interpolate between these two sides. So if one side goes to this way and the other side goes that way, the correct interpolation is that it's right dead in the center. So if we now were to just add more of these, you can see this is the exact issue we were getting. If we now click here, you can see that the interpolation was correct. It's just not what we expected. So I'm going to be deleting all of these guys. Just select them, delete. And then we can just navigate around and see that the issue is absolutely indeed there. So if you want to fix this, the way is to add another guide, place it in the center, start to rotate it around, and then just start to shape it up. Honestly, that's the fix for this. You just have to go in and you just have to start shaping this up so the interpolation is correct. This is really annoying, and it's strangely specific to a mohawk like this. You probably aren't going to be seeing this with a lot of other shapes as well. But the fix is really to add more guides in the middle and just keep adding more guides to it. The way we are going to be fixing this is we aren't. We are not going to be fixing this in this series. First, it would take us ages just to place the guides. But also secondly, we're going to be having such a rough groom that this is not really going to be a problem. This here might actually help us in certain ways because we just want this to be, we don't want this to be a clear mohawk like this. This doesn't come straight from the mohawk factory. This has been used and worn quite a lot. So we are going to be dealing with based on that. But the fix for this is to add more guides, or you could potentially do one side as one groom, meaning one's left side is one description, right side is one description, or you could use an actual region map to control where they are. But this is a strangely specific issue to what we're dealing with. Now, once we have our actual guides in place, like we do now, we're just going to be clicking this button. This just enables AA, anti-aliasing in the viewport, which just makes it a bit nicer. And now we can just zoom in and we can see what's going on. Then we're going to be breaking it up with modifiers. Now, what's important when you're dealing with modifiers is that the modifier CV count is set to a lot higher than 5. We're going to be setting this to 30. And the reason is, if you were to set this to something really low, you really can't see the modifiers. It's trying to paint a painting with 10 pixels versus like 1,000 pixels. You really can't get in the information into it. And now, well, let's go into the modifiers. Modifiers is where a lot of the magic happens. We can now just disable the guides because we don't need those. Click on the eye icon next to the guide. At least the icons in XGen are very nice and logical. And then we are making another modifier. Click on the add modifier. And then we are going to be adding a clumping modifier. This is really the basis for everything you are going to be doing. And now it's going to be like, whoa, no clump guides found. And I know XGen, so you're a bit aggressive here. You know, we haven't had time to add the clump guides yet, but you know, bear with us. We'll add the clump guides. It's very easy to add the clump guides. We go under modifiers all the way to the bottom and we hit setup map. And then we're going to be setting the density to 25. And that gives us a certain density for the clump maps. Hit generate, and then we hit save. And now you can see that the clumping is working. And now we get this really nice and organic result. And you can already start to see that the issue we had before has been broken up a little bit. It's not a huge problem anymore. So this is where you can also experiment with what number is right for you. If we go into setup map, you can increase these, you can decrease this. You can set this to 15, you can generate and save. And you can you just get lower clumps, lower amount of clumps. If you set this to something a lot higher, if you set this to something like 100, generate. Now you can see what happens. You'll just have a lot more of the clumps. And a clump is each one of these is one clump. Each one of these is one clump. So the higher the number, the more broken up the hair is, or the more of these clumps you're going to be having. Set up maps, and let's go back to around 25. And then hit generate and save. So now we get this more low frequency result. And then we are going to do something a bit weird. Now we can see that the clump scale is set so that it does nothing, or it does a little bit in the beginning. You can see here, this is in the beginning, what value is it? And this is the end. So, but we're going to be changing this so that it goes, and we really separate the pieces in the beginning. So essentially, let me explain this with another paint over. I want this to go more like this, so that we have, they're just a bit more like they're actually placed here. Essentially, we want something more like this, so that they're placed down by an actual human. So by doing like this, we're going to get a pretty good result. So we're going to be adding 2 points, and then we're going to be deleting the last one. And then we're going to be moving this down just a little bit. And now you can see what is starting to happen is that we get this result where it's pretty thick on the top, on the bottom, and then it just fades in a little bit. And then it goes into these very straight chunks of hair going up, like so. You can feel free to modify this to your heart's content. If you want this to be thicker, you put it higher up. If you want this to be thinner, you put them all the way down. So we're going to do something in the middle. We're going to do them so that we can clearly see that they're separate clumps, but where they're also not broken up too much. And actually right there, I just had the issue that I couldn't see the guides, so we just had to fix that. I just had to navigate around a little and then just click on the preview guides tool. And then just click on the preview groom. And this just happens. This is just XGen being XGen. This is most likely going to happen to you as well. So then we can make another clumping. We click on the add modifier. Then we add another clumping. We hit OK. And now it's going to give us the same issue. And it's going to be very temperamental once again. And we just have to go to setup maps. In this case, we're going to set this to twice the amount. We're going to be setting this to 50. Generate, and then we're going to hit and save. And now maybe if the XGen gods are with us, we're going to be seeing this groom popping up as well. So now you can see it's just being broken up just a little bit more. And we are going to be leaving this almost at default. We're just going to be moving this up just a little bit, like so. On this one, we are also going to be changing the clump amount to 2. This just means that it's a bit more intense. Let's move this up a little bit as well. This is a nice way of just globally changing it. You could, of course, change it with the curve, but it's nice to just go in and be able to change it with that. And then we are going to be adding a noise to this. Noise is very nice because it allows you to really go a bit crazy with the breakup. We add modifier, and then we go and we add noise. You can see it's all nicely broken up. And now you can see what this does right away. This just breaks it up. And this is where you can also play with the curve. If we click here and we drag it down, you can see now nothing really happens in the beginning. We get more noise breakup at the top. So I want that. I want more stuff to happen at the top. And I can almost see that, there's like a clear line where you want the noise to be. That can be really cool as a stylistic choice if you want that for some reason. But in our case, we don't want it to be this clear. We want it to be a bit almost like this, but a bit of a fade. And now you can see we get this really nice groom where it's very nice and tidy on the bottom, and it goes up and we get this really nice and broken up result. Keep in mind, we're not actually doing hair. Like, we're not doing realistic human hair. In this case, we're doing something more akin to, horsehair placed manually by hand into a helmet. There will be like holes down in the helmet where you would see what would be where the different hairs would go. And you would just place them there. So it's really important that you can differentiate where they're going. So this is really about tweaking it. You can always just tweak this to death. You can keep going and just tweak this all day, every day. I just want this to be a bit more focused because now it looks a little bit like noodles. So I want this to just be a little bit straighter. You can also just disable the noise. We can take this down just a little bit. We can even set the mask intensity down to something like 0.8 just to get it to be a little bit more or less intense. And let's take the second clumping down a little bit as well. Set this to 0.5, not 5, 0.5. And so it's just a little bit less intense. Simple that, and now we can enable this noise again. Because I still very much want it to look like we have the different strands going in. And this is really about balance. This is not about, you put in these correct numbers and from now on you're golden. No, this is not how it works. You have to block it in, general to specific, and then you have to go back and rebalance in the numbers. But let's go into the primitives now, and I can see why it was so important that we set this to something like 30. Set this to 5, there are only 5 points, so nothing is going to happen. Increase this to 10, you see a little bit happens. And if you were to just increase this more and more, you can see that more and more stuff is happening. So you reach a point, of course, of diminishing returns. If we were to set this to 1,000 versus 2,000, there isn't really a big difference there. But in our case, this is going to be quite important to have. So that's how we actually do the groom. We are soon going to be looking into how we can actually do the set up shaders for it. This is the default shader, and we have to make a special shader for the groom. So make sure to save the project. I prefer to save a few different versions because I don't really trust it. And make sure that if you do work on different projects later on for xgen, that the project has been set. It's so important, particularly if you go back and forth between different Maya projects and different grooms. If you were to, for instance, move the project from one hard drive to another or one server to another, and you don't copy the entire project, you're going to be missing very essential guides. Like you can see a mask, map, all the kind of stuff. There are tons of xgen specific files. So it's essential that you set the project and you move the entire project. I personally got burnt quite badly a few times where I thought I'd set the project, and I had, but I was working on a different project. Let's say this is the helmet, and the next project was like a human head. Now I'll be doing the helmet hair in the human head project, which it looks identical, but the problem is now that the data is stored in the wrong directory. So just double check it. There is a reason I'm so adamant that you check this. But yeah, in short, we need a piece of geometry to generate the groom from. Then we will draw out general guides. Then we have to just shape the guides using the sculpt guides tool. And then we use modifiers to make this really nice and broken up, by default using the clumping, then using noise on top of it, and then we will assign shaders to this later on.